Any change to the census, any addition of a question, usually takes 5 years of a process to make sure that it is vetted, that every word has been tested, to make sure that it is effective, because it is one of the most important things that we do. So it's not that I want to, this is not about whether or not I want to know who is a citizen in the United States or not. What I want to know is why this question was added, why 2 years have been shaved off of that 5-year process. I want to know why we have skipped every normal mandated procedure in testing how this question gets added in the census. I want to know why this question was magically added after we have seen that a political operative knew and detailed an intent to intimidate racial and immigrant communities for a partisan purpose, saying this will hurt Democrats and help Republicans. That's what I want to know. I want to know why Secretary Ross continued to meet with people of disturbing political affiliations after his own administration warned him to stop. He came right here and I asked him, did you continue speaking with him after this? He told me no, we had an email, and he did. He did. I want to know why people like Chris Kobach, with a documented history of overseeing effects. He has a resume of voter suppression techniques in the state of Kansas. I want to know why folks like that have their fingerprints all over the most sensitive census operations that we have as a United States government. This determines who is here. This determines who has power in the United States of America. That is what we want to know. I want to know about corruption. That's what I want to know about, the racism and the very disturbing history that we're seeing here. That's what I want to know. And so we gave the opportunity to ask. We asked, why are all of these things happening? Why is all of this connected? Why are there so many people, everyone from Steve Bannon to Chris Kobach, having their fingerprints and their political intent all over the United States Census? Why? And what did we get? Nothing. No response. Stonewalling, we're getting obstruction, we're getting a lack of answers. I don't want to issue a subpoena. Nobody wants to be in a position where you have to issue a subpoena of an administration official, because we are a co-equal branch of government, and it should be expected that when we ask a question, we get a response. But when we don't, we have to do our job. No one wants to be in a position where we have to issue a subpoena. But today, because of the Secretary and because of the Attorney General's refusal to cooperate with a co-equal branch of government, we have no choice. This is about the rule of law. This is about the respect of our institutions, and this is about the power of all of us as a body, as the United States Congress, and the integrity of the government of the United States. There is a reason that our government is designed the way that it is, and it is because it is designed to acknowledge the flawed human nature in our grand experiment of self-governance. Unspeakable horrors have been executed by the United States in the name of citizenship, in the name of determining who is a citizen. And by citizen, we mean who is a person in our democracy. That is what citizenship means. It is an acknowledgement of personhood in American democracy, an acknowledgement of power. And when I think about Supreme Court decisions with this, I think about Dred Scott. I think about Korematsu versus the United States, where the Supreme Court upheld Japanese internment regardless of the citizenship status of Japanese Americans. And how did that start? It started with the United States Census. We have laws on the books saying that information from the census cannot be used in any other way, that it must be confidential. And what happened? When the federal government, the executive branch, the president of the United States, I don't care if he was a Democrat, I don't care if he was a Republican, it was wrong. And what he did, he asked for information, and the Census Bureau broke the law and divulged information on zip codes where Japanese Americans were concentrated. And that information was used to intern American citizens and non-American citizens alike. And the Supreme Court upheld that. Dred Scott, a black man suing for his freedom, came right before the United States Supreme Court. And what they said was that the U.S. Constitution did not give African American citizenship. They have gotten it wrong. The Supreme Court has gotten it wrong. And unspeakable violations of human rights and civil liberties have been executed by the United States government in light of that. And I can tell you, with this Supreme Court argument, they could very well get it wrong again. And I don't even want to think about how far that could be pushed. But that is not even what the question is at hand today. Because what this subpoena is about and what this contempt is about is the fact that we have asked for information and there is a refusal to comply with a co-equal branch and our power. That's all that this is about. That's all that this is about. And so we have to execute our power and hold that power to account and vote on contempt. So the reason I do not want to support this amendment is because I don't want to muddy our waters. I want to make sure that we are laser focused, that we are effective, that we are efficient, that we don't add any bloat and we do not confuse people as to why we are doing what we need to do. We are voting on contempt because we need to do our jobs and people are refusing to comply and because we have given no choice, regardless of what's being held in front of the Supreme Court, regardless of what's happening in the executive branch, we need to do our job, and that is what this vote is about today.
This is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez excoriating the Trump administration over its malicious handling of the 2020 census during a contempt hearing for Wilbur Ross. As Commerce Secretary, Ross is responsible for trying to add a citizenship question to the 2020 census. Here's what it boils down to. Republicans are trying to include the question on the census to scare people of color into not being counted. That's it. Period. Any suggestion otherwise is pure, disingenuous political theater. After 2 years of nearly daily stories about DACA recipients, legal residents, family members, even U.S. citizens being targeted for deportation, the likelihood that someone with even a Hispanic-sounding name is going to be chomping at the bit to draw attention to themselves to a hardline federal government is obviously not high. And for good reason, since this administration has been relentless and reckless in its efforts to target citizens and non-citizens, to deport even those who have no business being deported so long as they're people of color. And that's the point for Republicans, because people of color tend to vote Democratic. So if they're undercounted in the next census, which only happens once a decade, then the apportionment of federal funding and congressional representation in those districts also goes down. In fact, studies have shown that such a question would decrease the response rate by as much as 5%. In other words, and I know this is going to be hard to believe, but it's all about the Republican Party usurping power by any means necessary. And in case the glaringly obvious wasn't enough, there's proof. Newly revealed documents show that the recently deceased Thomas Hoffeller, a Republican redistricting expert who helped draw such gerrymandered aberrations as the unconstitutional North Carolina map, was pushing the administration to add this question because it would be, quote, advantageous to Republicans and non-Hispanic whites, and would clearly be a disadvantage for the Democrats. These documents blow a major hole in Republicans' arguments for including the question. Wilbur Ross's advisor Mark Newman, who had consulted Hoffeller, claimed in his sworn testimony that the question would, quote, maximize representation for the Latino community, when in reality, Newman and Hoffeller, and presumably Ross, knew it would have exactly the opposite effect. And Hoffeller's newly discovered writing proves that. But it's important to move quickly because the Supreme Court is in the process of hearing this case, and will likely decide by the end of this month whether or not to uphold the administration's plan to add the citizenship question to the next census, which is why this administration is intentionally slow-walking the process. Trump himself is now asserting executive privilege over documents related to the census that were subpoenaed by Congress, which is what led to today's hearing over whether to hold Wilbur Ross and Attorney General Bill Barr in contempt. And that's exactly what they should do, because from the insidious nature of the citizenship question itself to the intentional stonewalling that this administration is engaging in right now, this White House is not and never was acting in good faith. So any leniency by the Democrats is simply misguided, because only one side is actually playing by the rules. The fact fact is that the entire country knows why the citizenship question is being added, that we have proof of the Trump administration's intentions in including it, and that they're purposefully obstructing efforts to engage in rightful oversight. So Republicans can twist themselves into pretzels to make this about anything other than it is, to gaslight us and claim that the question is actually to help the group they're trying to hurt, but they're not fooling anyone. And so they should be prepared to be held in contempt, to face daily fines and jail time because of it.